Welcome to our very next episode. On today's episode, we have a special guest. She is in the top 10 of the women in fashion and wearable tech. She is the CEO and founder of 360 Fashion Network. My guest, Anina Net. I'm your host, Dr. Dan Ford, and this is EchelonOrchid.
Guess who's back?
Anina, good morning, good evening. Welcome to EchelonOrchid.
So delighted to be here and your whole futuristic vision of the world that you're bringing forward. Thank you so much for letting me share a little bit about the fashion and technology side of things.
Absolutely. I'm quite fascinated because I also utilize quite a bit of wearable tech. I mean, today I wear an Oura ring, which is, I think it's Swedish. I don't recall, but it's somewhere in Europe. But it helps with the monitoring of all of my health stats, my heart rate, my breaths per minute, my temperature, also all the sleep stuff. So I'm very fascinated as to how has the fashion and tech world kind of been pushed together and to be fashionable. I mean, you're at the top of this. So how are women using, technology in all of their fashions and wearables and things like that?
Well, first of all, fashion is a great communicator, right? We are not here naked on camera, are we? Right? And a lot of how we dress is expressing who we are. If we meet either here virtually or if we were to meet in person, you can already read information about me just by looking at what I have and perhaps accessories that I choose, little flares, etc., right? And so with fashion being the great communicator, if we combine that together with technology, that gets even more powerful in what we can do. And fashion really touches everything, right? Because if something isn't beautiful, it's very hard to get adaptation, right? And that goes from everything from your home to the ring that you're wearing. If it was an ugly brick of a thing, you wouldn't probably wear it no matter how much it would help you, unless, of course, it was a medical need, right? And so, again, we see the merging of health tech, sports tech, entertainment tech, and also fashion tech, right? Fashion tech is all of those things, right? But it's also its own sort of genre, because then if we break it down from there, it's the way I define it is any technology applied to fashion. And that can be AI, blockchain, robotics, VR, AR, I think mobile applications, blogging to even mobile phones. And that's sort of where I started. And gaming, I came out with this whole idea of creating the future woman. And what would that future woman look like? Well, as a fashion model is my background. I would have my own game with my own avatar that I would dress up in real fashion clothing. I would have clothing on me that would do more than just be there for show. It would be connected to the world around me and giving me feedback, right? It would also be looking after my health and help me to lead a better lifestyle, right? And then let's talk about the fun and the fantasy, right? With AR and imagining the world, I could have wings and I can run after Pokemons and I can wear virtual dresses, all the way to be up to my latest project, for example, of robotics and luxury robotics, and what do carrying robotics look like in the home. We see today these googly-eyed, kind of scary armed, robots. Well, I don't think they have to look like that. And if you look at the beauty around us, we want to have things that are functional, but technology becomes invisible like my wireless charging wallets that, keep women's phones powered up in their busy lifestyle of a day without having to carry around a power bank, a cord, a plug, all of these things. Then that means I have to have a bag to put all that stuff in. Then I got to carry that. That throws my, body off. There's a lot of reasons for having just one thing, your wallet with you, just one thing, your smart shirt with you, just one thing, all of these devices with us, a ring, for example, that can do more. So as I stepped out and I started developing these things, aesthetic is what creates things for women. So I created a smart safety ring because I got attacked in London. I got trapped inside a phone booth with a woman while I was on a casting. And I said, I had no way to call anybody for help, or kind of in the nightclub at night, I would lose my friends. And how could I communicate with them and let them know that they needed to come find me, right? So all of these ways of living my lifestyle led me to create technology that I would want to wear and that I would use in different scenarios. So I really think that designing technology for women by women really creates tech that can help them in their multitasking lifestyles.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as you were talking, I'm sitting there going, you're able to bring the everyday Batman, Batgirl, Iron Man. I don't know if there's an equivalent there in superhero in terms of what they're wearing to reality, to the everyday person, where literally what they're wearing becomes their, so to speak, superpower, or at least being able to help in some capacity. So Anina, but how did you get to this point? You're over in Asia now, but were born in Germany, and lived sometime in the United States. How did you get to where you are now in a quick little bio of you?
So, I accredit the ability to think technologically to my father, who never excluded me from tech. And whenever he would call, us over to fork a hard drive out of a computer, or whether we were solving a math problem, it wasn't like, hey, you boys, I have two brothers. Hey, you boys, come over here. It was like, hey, you kids, come over here, right? And so when they went to code camp, I went to code camp. It was just expected of me. It was natural and normal. And so I grew up with technology. And I don't remember a time that I didn't have technology. I remember times where everyone around me didn't have technology, didn't have computers, didn't have games, didn't have a lot of the things that we had. And I'm very lucky that my father was, a teacher at a private school, art school. So, they had lots of equipment available to them for mathematicians. So that was super lucky. And I just would say that allowed me to live a lifestyle where tech was just an everyday part of my life. And so as I stepped out, I was expected to be a computer engineer, and I took a left at the Paris catwalks, because who wouldn't as a young girl? I used technology in my modeling career to get ahead, because I could I could configure my SMTP server on my mobile phone when I switched countries. It just meant that I could, send emails from a field where my agent said, I need pictures of your hair for a job tomorrow in Spain. I could do business faster. I built a mobile website with all my photos and videos. And when I would meet a photographer in a bar or a casual situation, I would just SMS them the link to that website, mobile site. And then boom, they would have me in their phone and have me in their mind. So these are all kind of normal things that happen today all the time. But back then, it was almost impossible because nobody knew how to configure these things. There was no interoperability. It was all, the mobile internet was really starting. And so I would say as I moved forward, I imagined this new kind of supermodel, and I launched with the art costume movement in Moliere's house in Paris. This exhibition with over 1,000 artists, and I lived at the top of the house where I built like a faux model apartment, and I made this analogy between what I would do in the physical world and how that was becoming digitized. So in the model apartment, just as a small example, you stay 3 months and you pin pictures and things up on your wall where you're sleeping, right? It's like your little collage at the end. Well, that became a blog, right? It became digitized and became a blog as we document our lifestyle, you know? And it was quite exciting at the time. I was kind of the it girl. And we had a line, 1,000 people outside the door to get in. And I live streamed me living at the top of this Moliere's house and broadcasted it across the internet, which again at that time was just not done and was sort of like a reality TV. So all of these kind of concepts I said were the future, that models would become role models and that they would use social media and media to promote the brands and the causes and the things that they believed in, and that they would become super role models. So they wouldn't just be supermodels, they'd be super role models. And that all came out of my deep desire that everywhere I went when I did technology, there were only men in the room. And I said, we need more girls in tech. And if I could, pass my life and make tech cool and make more women want to be in tech, then I will have achieved something of significance to leave as a legacy in my lifetime.
That's quite interesting, and so many different things come to mind as because I also have a daughter. Between the missus and I, we have 6 kids, and the daughter is the youngest. And what's interesting in that I'm always telling her about how smart she is, going under all of those characteristics, while my ex is always bringing up, oh, you're so pretty, always going on those aspects where I want her to know that she's worth much more than just what her physical appearance may wind up being later in life. Which I think that positive, I don't know if that's, considered, positive body image or not, but I want her to be positive that she's much more than just what people see on the outside.
I think that is extremely commendable, and I would encourage you to involve her in the setup of your studio. I would involve her in connecting the wires. I would involve her in the post-editing process. I would sit her down next to you and expose her to as much technology as you can and involve her in what you're doing. And I can only attest to the fact that my dad doing this for me ended up that I had those latent impressions on my mind that I could do it too.
Right. Well, and it proves, at least one of my overall theories, in that all companies are technology companies that happen to deliver something through technology. And here you have absolutely taken fashion and tech, and it's a company. It's a brand. It's your lifestyle. So technology is involved in everything. And I believe you're absolutely correct in that, because you had a technology background, that definitely puts you ahead of everyone else, because they would have to rely on other people. And how do they know if they're doing it right?
And also, everything in this world is role models. Your father and mother are your first role models. Then fashion models and superstars become your next role models as you enter your teens, right? And with, great visibility, I think, comes great responsibility, right? And so what you're exposed to, you can emulate. And I would say that was one of the problems that I had, is that everywhere I looked, I couldn't see me. I didn't see any role models of women building tech. I didn't see any iconography or, images of women doing things. There were no women sitting at the tables when I started collaborating with telcos and large scale technology companies. There were no women engineers that I would collaborate with and be soldering things together with. And so I was like in the dark. I was blind and in the dark, and, you know, really trying to find my way. And so I had to create myself. And so I just really think that if now it's so wonderful, we have so many people putting forth women in science. It's not that they weren't there, is that we had no visibility for them, right? Now we have movies. Now we have lots of people celebrating women in tech. It's such an exciting time, and women, young women, can see all the different facets of what they can be. It's not just that this is what you can be. And I totally agree with you. Although my dad sat me down at one point, and I didn't understand it back then because I felt I was the odd man out in school. I did not have friends. I did not fit in, and people didn't really understand me for many reasons, being that I was had a German upbringing and fashion, and I was fashion forward. That's because I would go and live in Europe in the summers with my grandparents, and I was exposed in Berlin to, you know, big cities and fashion and all of these things, and then I would bring them back to this tiny little town that had like no diversity and no imagination, and, you know, they thought it was weird, and they didn't understand me. But again, you know, the whole idea that you know, would tell your daughter about her mind. My dad sat me down and he had this long talk that I remember to today, where he talked about that beauty is powerful, and that I had to use it responsibly, and that it could open lots of doors for me, and that it would also make lots of people dislike me. And at the time I was like, I'm not beautiful. Why are you talking to me about this, Dad? You know, I was like, okay, you know, one of those dad conversations where like, okay, Dad, are we done? You know? But now, when I've become a fashion model, when I understand the power of beauty and it opens doors, but once you walk in the door, if you ain't got nothing to say and you can't back it up, then it's completely useless. You know, it can open a door for you, but you have to walk in and know your stuff. And that's the thing, is when I walked in, you know, at first people put me on stage in the tech world because I was the fashion model blogger, right? I was literally the first term model blogger in Google ever. And and they put me on stage because I was sort of an anomaly, right? And then I would be talking about the future and how we would be living in the future, and people would be like, what is she talking about? And then it's so interesting, like 4 years later, I kind of like, I was at a conference and I overheard these guys talking in a circle, and they were like, this is everything that Anina talked about 4 years ago. Now we understand what she's talking about, you know? So, you know, when you are ahead, when you have the vision, when you are able to connect the dots, and again, I was able to connect the dots simply because as a fashion model, every 2 days I was in a different city, I was in a different country. Every week, every month, I went all around the world, and I was exposed to so much diversity and so many things, and I only had my mobile phone to do everything through. So I knew what I wanted that thing to do, and I knew that we had this lifestyle, this global lifestyle, and I believe that it is the best education. I always say that modeling prepared me to be an entrepreneur, you know? And when I went out into the real world, quote unquote, the real world, right? And I started showing my portfolio of tech instead of my modeling portfolio, right? I just was like sitting there one day showing my portfolio on my iPad of all the tech things that I had built and my concepts. And I was like, this is just like modeling, you know? And it is that is what it is. You go out, you meet people, you show them, you discuss your ideas. It's exactly like modeling, client acquisition, return customers. You have all of that in fashion. And it just is that modeling offered me the opportunity to experience that and to become an entrepreneur at an early age. The difference is that as I was a very young, and most models are very young, they don't realize the incredible opportunity they have in front of them. I speak 6 languages now. I live in China, you know, and I can speak and translate and talk to people all over the world. So it is a great gift, but when you're very young, you may not understand the power of that.
Right, absolutely. So, when I think of fashion, I don't think of that as being a male-dominated industry. Um, I mean, I wouldn't. I think always, oh well, when we talk about technology or engineering, but I wouldn't think fashion would have been it. So that was kind of surprising that you said, oh, you'd show up to these things and it's all a bunch of men. How has that changed, if at all?
Well, again, I think it's more in the tech world that there are no women. So, but if you look again at the highest level, who are the CEOs? Who are on the board? All men, right? Of course, in fashion, more women can have their own businesses, fashion designers owning their own brands, their own e-commerce stores. The head of the fashion magazines, the head editors are women, right? So absolutely, fashion has more women entrepreneurs and women in higher ranking positions, but there still is the glass ceiling. Who owns Hearst? Who owns Condé Nast? Who is sitting at the board, right? And what color are they, right? We're talking really about a lack of diversity in the fashion world. And again, when we're talking about the tech world, same thing. Who's sitting at the table? Well, the secretary is female and she's bringing in the drinks, but she's not the engineer that I'm working with. And she's not the marketing manager, And I have to say that my great fortune came because of Nokia Corporation. Lee Epting was the head of global marketing of Nokia at the time, and she created a program called Nokia Champions, which out of 2 million developers in the whole world, 50 were chosen for their innovation, and they were given this special privileges, special trainings, special access, even a special logo that we were allowed to put on our website that distinguished us as experts in Nokia technology, in technology. We were given access and tickets to come to the huge Nokia Worlds and other conferences. We were given access to information under NDA before anybody else had it. We were brought as the go-to developers that would be able to collaborate with Nokia in developing new technologies and stuff. So you had to compete for that, in the whole year. And I won it 8 years in a row. And I was so grateful for all of that because it is the foundation of which gave me the very clear view of the infrastructure that was being built around us in our smart cities, talking about UMA, talking about switching. I know how cell phone towers work. I have a very clear vision of what interoperability is. I know how data flows. I know server technology. There are all sorts of extraneous stuff that I know from an infrastructure perspective that once you know the infrastructure and where it's what they're building, and of course these are 10 and 20-year projects, right? But once you know where that's going, then you know what to build, which will be interoperable and working with that technology of the future.
Yeah. Now, speaking of the future, essentially here we are. How has fashion tech world changed during the world being completely locked down? How has that impacted your business?
So interesting. So, as you know, there's really not these huge giganto fashion weeks that took place before. The entire fashion industry, we can't travel, right? They can't like jet over to the factory in China or Bangladesh or wherever it is. Now we have travel restrictions, right? 14 days, 21 days quarantine, if you can travel at all, right? Even all over the world. And so digital fashion has taken off. And that means like a mass adaptation of creating files in 3D design. And that brings a whole new world, which is when combined with augmented reality, when combined with virtual reality, when we're talking about streaming technology and filters and all types of online experiences, opens up a whole new wave of market, a whole new market that didn't really exist before in the metaverse. And the other really, really amazing thing that's happening is the deconstruction, the total breakdown of the old way of doing things. People no longer want to be part of things that are not inclusive. They don't want to be part of things that are not sustainable. They don't want to be part of like this pyramid where you had to wait for somebody to die to move up the food chain, that there is a holy, CFDA or a holy body that determines whether or not your collection has value, that there are magazines that if you're not in them, somehow you have no value. When I became a fashion model and then I was like, I need to go to China because I was watching gold and I saw that the economic crisis was coming. Everyone was like, don't go to China. Everybody lives in thatch huts and they eat dogs. There's no fashion in China. And I was like, are you kidding me? All of fashion comes from China. This was in 2007. And I had to really break out and go to China on my own. And I ended up bribing, in a certain sense, one of my agents to give me the contacts there so that I could go, because he didn't want to go against my mother agency, which I was their cash cow. So they didn't want me to leave. But I went anyways, and it was the best move that I ever moved, because I looked at the world from a business perspective and I saw economic crisis coming, 2,000 euro in rent ain't no good idea. And where can I go to hide out, with my book, my asset, and my name and reputation? Well, Olympics, investment, advertising, boom, China, And so I went there and I hatched up this really ridiculous plan of, okay, I'll go to China and then I'll become China's top foreign model. And then everyone will play my mobile game, Anina Dress Up, and like that, then I'll become really well known there. And then I'll revolutionize the fashion industry from the top down. Ridiculous plan. But 2 years later, I achieved all of that. I was, I'm the only foreigner in the history of China to ever receive an award by the Chinese government that governs, the entertainment industry, under which fashion modeling falls. I worked with the China National Garment Association to create huge pavilions of technology, which you can see on our YouTube channel, where I showcased every year the latest tech, and people could experience 110,000 people coming to the exhibitions. And I can really say that together with the Central CNTAC and with the China National Garment Association and the Chic Fashion Expo, we educated thousands of people, even 100,000 people, on how technology could be used in the fashion industry. And so what's the result of that? Well, now we see smart clothing on the market here. We see heating garments, heating coats. We see smart technology. We see wearable tech. We see fashion tech. It's everywhere here. And it's about that re-education that happened. And again, nobody wanted me to come to China. And I just had to be brave and hatch up my own plan and do it. And so, that's kind of what you have to do. And that's the spirit of being an entrepreneur. And in that same spirit, now we are in this new era of fashion where we are literally building a whole new world, the metaverse, and we are having 3D fashion shows online, and we are having body diversity online, and we are having virtual characters online, and we are building a whole new world online that has all the values that, you know, the new generation wants.
You know, I'll bring it back to a guy analogy in this case for what you did. And so as you were talking about how, you know, you were already, you know, on the top of your game, but you felt like there was a lot missing. And so that's why you had to go to China. And so I'm reminded of, I think it was Tris Speaker who said about Babe Ruth when he went from being a pitcher to a hitter. He's like, he's crazy. He's a good pitcher. Why would he want to go be a full-time hitter? Like there's nothing there. Well, Babe Ruth, believing in himself, said basically, well, the enemy of good, you know, the enemy of greatness is good. I may have been good, but I can be great. I can transcend. And, you know, the path that you've taken and betting on yourself and believing in yourself is, you know, truly, truly remarkable. Now, you know, and with that, you know, you have a online digital fashion show coming up. It's at the end of this month, correct?
So it's the Digital Fashion Online Summit. And one part of it is, of course, conference, where we are, you know, having keynote speeches and fireside chats from leaders in fashion and technology all over the world, you know, talking about this huge change that's going on. You know, big conversations are the digital fashion and creating in 3D. The big changes are NFTs, you know, non-fungible tokens, creating value for digital assets, and how does that relate to the fashion industry? We even have 3D printing on fabrics and sustainable luxury. We have smart garments and clothing innovation with healthcare. We have also, you know, new business models, sustainable business models for fashion brands that Muchineta Kapfunda, you know, just was talking about today. And it's very important to have this business models behind so that change is sustainable. And I even cannot go through all the blockchain and supply chain, AI, and intelligence, and talking about all of pretty much every technology as it applies to fashion will be discussed in the conference. But then the really exciting part is the networking party. You know, I'm super excited because there we are going to be live streaming from different parts of the world with tableau vivants, so that people can take pictures. I don't know if you know, if it's Zoom photography, and, you know, everybody taking their pictures online is actually a big thing right now. And so
especially in the video game market.
Right? And offering people the opportunity to, you know, co-create with the designers by shooting and being the photographers online. And then we'll have lots of rooms with different conversations going on so that we can meet in roundtable video and network together, because there's great power in knowing what other people are doing. And, you know, hey, I know somebody that you should connect up with, or hey, I'd love to collaborate with you on that. You know, all of those things that we used to be able to do offline, it's very difficult to do online. So I'm creating this networking opportunity. And then lastly, we have a bit of AI matchmaking in the networking area, where if you jump in there with other people, you'll be automatically paired up with someone, and you get like 3 to 5 minutes to introduce yourself in a speed dating environment. So the whole idea is to create opportunities for us to meet and collaborate online in a fun environment, with experimenting with, you know, what is it that, you know, the fashion show is broken. You know, models shooting down a catwalk has no sense online? Why do you attend a show? You attend a show because you want to get your phone out and you want to shoot video and you want to shoot photos. Well, we can't do that now, you know? So how do we recreate the fashion experience online? So that's sort of what I'm trying to do, and love to welcome your audience to join. You can go to digitalfashion.360fashion.net and join us at the party or at the conference if you want to learn about new technologies.
That's great. So where do you think the biggest jump in fashion tech has been?
I would say it's definitely in the education of how people go online. I mean, there were people who couldn't even barely email, and that would have their assistants be emailing, you know. The buyers were often from an older generation, and, you know, they just didn't want to learn all that tech. And now they have to because they don't have their assistant that can help them in person, right? And so they had to learn how to Zoom and buy online and do all sorts of things and use AR, and, you know, they had to embrace all of this. But definitely right now, I think the biggest key changer in fashion is the blockchain. And the blockchain is creating transparency and accountability in fashion. And they're being dragged kicking and screaming because, you know, nobody really wants to dig into that deep, dark can of worms and rabbit hole, right? And of course, digital fashion is taking off in its petri dish, but it is actually becoming a genre, and more people who, you know, try on clothes virtually might be surprised that it's actually a really cool experience. And when we talk about gaming and fashion and how we socialize online, you know, esports and interacting with virtual characters online is really what Gen Z is all about. You know, millennials came from the era of IRC and, you know, Messenger, you know, and collaborating in nodes through chat, right? And working together. And so it's interesting, Gen Z is learning that collaboration and cooperation through gaming, whereas, you know, baby boomers and other generations, Generation X, it's all about me, right? And the individual, and not working together in nodes and not collaborating and so on. So I love that the millennials and the Gen Zs, because they see the destruction of the planet, are standing up together because they learned how to organize on the internet, you know, and they learned how to take over the internet, as we saw with Robin Hood, right? They know how to game the system to get attention, right? They know how to use the internet to make themselves heard. And so I love that they're using their power to stand up against things that are not ethical, reasonable, or sustainable.
Absolutely, they are. You know, but as being an outlier to one of the Gen X's, I will. You know, one of the things that I like to do for my first time guests, which is help. You know, for myself and my audience to help keep you accountable to whatever your next goal is. So, Anina, what is the next goal that we can help you maintain accountability for?
So, you know, I created lots of wearable tech products. And, you know, as everyone, you know, you have your strength and then you have your weakness, right? And I can build anything. I mean, you name it, purple polka dotted, whatever, flying through the air with the greatest of ease, I can build it. But then if you looked around in my studio, you'd see my LED t-shirts, my chokers, my wallets, all here. And I never put them out there for people, you know, and I would shrink back from that. So in 2021, I decided to have more courage and put myself out there and tell more of my stories. and share more of my products, because I truly stand behind the things that I make as making people's lives better, specifically women, because I'm designed for women. And so my personal accountability goal is to not shrink back and to be brave and put my things out there, and to listen to feedback, and to hear what people are saying, and then to help build even better products. And in every one of my products, I build in the circular economy. Everything is disassemblable so that it can be recycled. We have programs to take products back, and then we will recycle them. So they were already designed before they were even built, in a modular way to deal with the end of their life cycle, which I'm excited to see and hear people's reactions. So please go to Anina2049.com. You'll see my wallets. I'd love to hear what you think, what I could do better, and what technologies, women would love to have in their lives.
I think that's great. Anina, I really appreciate you coming on. If there's anything I can do for you in the future, please don't hesitate to ask. Thank you so much. This has been great. Any parting words?
Absolutely. I'm thinking of your beautiful daughter, and I want to commend you for all those positive, reinforcing things that you're saying to her. And I want to thank you so much for putting that emphasis on her mind. And I want to encourage all the dads out there to, include your daughters in what you're doing, because my dad fed into my life, and this is what I became. And I can only imagine all the wonderful things that they can learn from you, from business, from, building houses. My stepdad would take me to build houses, I would learn electrical systems, all the things that girls aren't supposed to do. And so I want to say, let's break those norms and let's build beautiful people. Thank you.
That is awesome. Anina, thank you so much. Everyone, thank you for tuning in. Please don't forget to subscribe. If you have any comments, if you have any future topics, you know how to find me. Everyone, thank you and take care.